Welcome to Cooking for Yummies on the Maple Knoll Radio Network. Coming to you from the Cromer-Mashburn Family Studio at WMKV. On this program, we explore the world of food, from the grocery store to the specialty store, and from the restaurant to your own kitchen. In doing so, we learn more about us as well.
We thank you so much for joining us. Our program is Cooking for Yummies here on the Maple Knoll Radio Network. We love to talk about food that we crave, food that we indulge in, food that we eat out, and food that we make at home. And one of the guests that we love having on here with us is Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company. Aaron, thank you again for joining us here to talk about some seasonal fall and winter dishes.
I appreciate you having me. How you doing today?
Doing well. I don't know that I'll ever be able to talk to you without thinking about that image that you mentioned in our very first show, that you get to work in one of the world's largest pantries.
It's a fascinating thing to be able to come up with a recipe, but when you have no recipe in mind and you're able to literally walk through 50 aisles of a grocery store just to come up with something, it's a wild world out there. And one of the fascinating things that I try to do is keep it under 6 ingredients, which makes it hard and easy at the same time because you have so many options.
I was going to say that's hard for you to keep it under 6 because you're a chef, but it's easy for those of us out there who don't want to dive too deeply into maybe a quick and easy recipe. And you also have some incredible recipes at Kroger.com. Our thanks to Kroger for making Chef Aaron available and Chef Aaron for giving his time to be with us here on Cooking for Yummies. And definitely check out some of his recipes, their seasonal recipes. I do want to ask about one of the questions, Aaron, that I think a lot of us have as consumers. And we are here still in this pandemic, if you will, and there are supply chain issues. A lot of people are saying, oh, order the favorite toys for your kids early and all that. But I'm also hearing that you want to make sure that if you're getting a ham or a turkey for the holidays, that you don't want to necessarily wait until the last minute. Does it really pay to order early on something like this, even if you're not picking up until closer to the holidays?
Like you said, with the hit or miss thing, sometimes we don't even know. You can order something on the store level, and maybe there's been a big rush on it. We've sold maybe more hams than expected, and it might come down to the time when you're celebrating that particular holiday, and it might not be available in, say, the size that you were looking for. So if you want a 22-pound turkey, well, maybe there's only 16. You might have to be prepared just to adjust in that manner. Maybe add an extra turkey breast or whatever it may be. But there is definitely something to think about with the pandemic still moving forward. Like you said, the supply chain has been a little bit difficult to get specialty items. So I think maybe as a chef and as somebody that's working in these buildings, maybe my suggestion is just be ready to slightly adjust your plans. That would be my personal suggestion.
You mentioned adding a turkey breast, let's say, if you can't get the size turkey that you want. I'm sure that there are creative workarounds for just about everything. Let's say that somebody wanted that 22-pound turkey, they can only get a 16. It might be an interesting way to maybe start a new tradition and maybe offer a second protein dish. Could be brisket, it could be ham. You might want to have an alternative, and you might actually find out some of your family might like having that alternative.
That's correct. And maybe you might find out you like having that alternative. I grew up kind of with that. So we would go to my grandma's house and we would have turkey. And then we would go to my aunt's house and we would have ham. It's kind of silly because I never was a gigantic ham person. And then I started preparing it to my liking. So I'm a big fan of, I put brown sugar and mustard on mine. And mind you, if you don't like mustard, you would never know the mustard is on there. But it is incredible once it finishes up.
Around this time of the year when we get into Thanksgiving and the other holidays, I know that there are so many family traditions and maybe families starting to get back together a little bit again. You are a chef. Does somebody else do the cooking at home for Thanksgiving, or are you the main guy in control? You mentioned your wife is a really good cook as well. How does that usually work at your house around the holidays?
We actually don't cook at our house. So I celebrate with technically 2 families, my wife's family and my family.
Sure.
And when we go to my wife's parents' house, I don't touch a thing in the kitchen. I might help clean up a little bit, but my mother-in-law puts down an absolute spread. She does the majority of it herself. I don't have to touch anything, and it's all delicious. As far as my family's concerned, one year we might go to my sister's house, one year we might go to my parents' house. So it depends on who's doing the cooking and whether I jump in. You know, I might help with the gravy or help carve the turkey. but I'm really not, we'll say, deep in the trenches when it comes to Thanksgiving. I really get to take it easy, which is kind of nice, and just
that's
enjoy
nice.
the food.
There are all kinds of schools on dressing or stuffing. Some people like the kind of more dry, almost like the stovetop type stuffing. Some people like maybe putting a little wine in and moistening that up and having a moist, wet stuffing. Where does Chef Aaron Neiman come in, and are there any really interesting things that you found other people using in their dressing or stuffing for the turkey?
I like a nice combination. So I guess going back to what my mother-in-law does is she makes almost like a muffin-sized ball, and it'll be nice and moist on the inside, but it'll crust up on the outside to have a nice little crust. So it's not going to, we'll say, completely disintegrate when it hits the gravy. I like a nice combination, but one of the things I do like in my stuffings in particular is a lot of herbs and a little bit of mushroom in there.
Very nice. And again, it's there to complement the meat, not necessarily overcome the protein or the turkey that you're eating. And I know some people make a pretty strong, a pretty spicy stuffing, but it's really there to be complementary to that great meat, whether you like the white meat or the dark meat from the turkey.
Yeah, some people like to put sausage in their stuffing. And like you said, that might end up overpowering something like a turkey, which is going to be a little more faint in flavor, unless, say, you do go for the bold, spicy turkey, or you do a deep-fried turkey where it's going to have a little bit more flavor to it. But I'm more of a fan of, if I have my sausage and my stuffing, it kind of reminds me of breakfast. So
That's true.
While it's delicious, I prefer to leave it out of mine, personally.
Now, I can't think of many things that don't benefit from having sausage in it, but it might be a little overkill in stuffing. We're talking today with Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company, and we're talking about some fall and winter seasonal and holiday dishes. We talked a little bit about ordering early or being prepared to pivot if you have to because of supply chain issues. And it's not something that Kroger can control. And in fact, retailers in general can't control this, especially if you know you need some spices, seasonings, things like that. Here in the fall, it might be good to get some of that because it'll hold up for the holidays. If you want to start getting things like that,
I would agree with that. Something that's going to last several months, maybe a year. Even if you're getting disposable pans and you see them available, it's not something that the price is going to ridiculously change. Kroger does a really good job at putting seasonal items on sale, especially items that you need for a particular holiday like Thanksgiving. They do a great job at trying to keep the consumer happy. Some of those items, like, say, a turkey might drop in price closer to the holiday, but items like spices or disposable pans, like I said, maybe even getting something simple like potatoes and just being ready ahead of time. If you're having family over for the holidays, that's stressful enough as it is. You got to get the house cleaned and you want to be prepared for everybody. Doing as much as you can ahead of time to help calm those nerves is definitely a positive thing. You don't always have to make everything from scratch. You can grab some pies that are already done. Maybe you make one of your own. Maybe you buy one so you have two different flavors, but you've saved a little bit of time. You grab some of the yeast rolls from the freezer, something simple to move forward with that scratch feeling, but it'll save you time and stress, which is the big one.
You brought up desserts. I hadn't even been thinking about desserts yet, but now my tummy's growling. We have Chef Aaron Neiman here with us from the Kroger Company. You can see a lot of his incredible recipes and food ideas at Kroger.com. We're going to take a quick break here in Cooking for Yummies, and we're going to be back with more with Chef Aaron Neiman. We're talking about fall, winter recipes, maybe some favorite holiday dishes. And again, it's hard to explain recipes over the air all the time, but you can always go to Kroger.com to find those and find out a little bit more. We're also going to ask about some fun and maybe different ways. He's already mentioned at least one way that he loves to serve ham for the holidays or any time. We'll talk about that, maybe some more creative ways for turkey as well. All that coming up here on Cooking for Yummy. Stay with us right here on WMKV and WLHS. Welcome back. It's Cooking for Yummies here on WMKV and WLHS. Our very special guest today, one of our regulars, Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company. You can find all kinds of great recipes and food ideas at Kroger.com. Chef Aaron, you were talking about how other people in your family put out a really great spread around the holidays. And my daughter is very much like that. She's not what I would call a chef, but she's a really good cook. She learned a beef brisket recipe from her mother-in-law, and my wife made some brisket too, but her mother-in-law was kind of the queen of the beef brisket. And all of a sudden, even the mother-in-law is saying, I can't even make it like her. This is incredible. So do you think that sometimes with family, it's a great chance to maybe show off a little bit? We have a chef coming over. Let's really put on the good stuff and do our best recipes. Do you think that happens when you go to a dinner?
I do think that happens. I've had it verbalized before when it happens. It said, oh, I'm cooking for a chef, And it's funny because when I go to somebody's home, I'm not judging anything.
Right.
If something tastes good from a home cook, I'm impressed already. And I'm not one to judge more because I'm in the hospitality business as well. So if somebody welcomes me into their home and feeds me, there's never going to be a reason I'm going to complain about anything.
That's right. One of the other things that I meant to ask you about last time we talked is this incredible ability for us that maybe wasn't even there when I was a kid, and I'm not that young anymore, but we can get fresh produce and fresh fruits and things like that 12 months out of the year for most different things. And I don't know that was a possibility 50 years ago or more because you had many seasonal things that you might not be able to ship and get to Cincinnati in time for it to not be spoiled or not be compromised. This is pretty amazing how quickly we can get fresh foods to our grocers, including Kroger.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing. If you walk through any of our produce departments and you see just the absolute variety of even looking at, say, tomatoes or apples, whichever season you're in, something simple like that, and you walk around and you look, you don't even think about it anymore walking through that section because it's just so available. It's kind of mind-blowing how many of those items can be sourced locally as well. There's a lot of technology to where you're able to grow when there's snow on the ground. You can grow inside. You can grow in a full-blown greenhouse. And it has definitely made things nice for the consumer. And the availability of it everywhere has made it cost-worthy to where you're able to buy those items and not break the bank for something that's typically going to be out of season.
We're here on Cooking for Yummies with Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company. He says he works in the world's largest pantry. To get ideas, all he has to do is walk down the aisles at his local Kroger store, and he can come up with all kinds of great ideas. Let's talk for a moment about some of the holiday staples. For some people, it's turkey. For some people, it's ham. People might be serving a beef brisket. You mentioned one of your favorite recipes for ham, which included even a mustard, almost like a mustard glaze, but it just kind of bakes in and you don't taste it. What are some of your other favorite ways that people might want to experiment with ham, turkey, maybe even beef?
Well, I guess I'll explain the turkey first. My favorite way to do turkey is to do an herb butter and shove it under the turkey skin. And what that's going to do, it's going to keep it moist, and it's going to make that skin crispy when it melts down as well. To me, by far, that's the best way. I love a deep-fried turkey, and I love a smoked turkey, which you can still use this process during the smoking process. But some people don't have that as an option. So by far, even if they're just dry herbs that you get off the spice shelf and mix into a room temperature butter and then shove it under there, it's going to just add a ton of flavor to it. The funny part is when we do beef, it's kind of a mixture of both the ham and the turkey ideas. I like putting mustard on there, and I also like putting those fresh herbs on there. And that's something that dates back to my mom's dad, my grandfather. He taught me how to truss a beef tenderloin, to tie it off, and he taught me everything that he put on there. So that kind of carries through to this day, and that's something that I guess you could say is a little more sentimental to my mother since he passed several years ago, that I continue that process, when we eat the tenderloin.
First of all, how do you get, and again, I'm a consumer of turkey, not a cooker of turkey, how do you get it under the skin? Is there a space where you can actually inject or push that in there?
You could technically melt the butter if you wanted, and there are definitely needles to inject that into the meat itself if you don't even go into the skin. But around the neck and then under the breast, if you find your way, usually I use my hands. I like to we sell gloves in our pharmacy area. I like to keep gloves at the house, and I use my hands and just kind of shove it under the skin the best that I can. That way it stays intact and it's not falling out.
The other thing that we talked about when we had our very first visit here on Cooking for Yummies is the social value of food. And here at the holidays, I think that hits its peak because you may be eating with or even virtually eating with during the pandemic, people that you may only see once or twice a year, if that. So the social value of this food and having a good meal that people can enjoy together and comment, this is great. You don't want the turkey that looks like Christmas Vacation where you cut it open and the thing collapses. So having this food adds to the celebratory nature, but also to the social value of that getting together. And I think sometimes the food might even, especially with tryptophan, might even calm some nerves of sometimes relatives who don't always get along together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it may make them sleepy. You might end up napping on the couch next to each other.
That's so true.
With wine and with the extra food, it's definitely going to calm down anything. You know, you turn on the parade, you turn on some football, whatever it may be, and the conversation starts going. But, yeah, definitely the holidays meeting with, as you could say, the food that kind of brings people together. It's nice to, at least from my perspective, see those people you haven't seen in a while or just don't get to see that often. You know, sometimes life gets busy and you get caught up with that. So the holidays is one of those times to reflect and just talk to your family and spend some time and really see what you have around you.
We were talking about some of the herbs that you might use, whether it's in stuffing or dressing or whether it's literally using it on the protein, the meat itself. What are some of the fall and winter herbs that people might be using a little bit more this time of the year than other times of the year?
The ones that pop out in my mind are rosemary and sage. Sage is one that you kind of want to hold back a little bit on because it is so earthy. But rosemary is going to be one of the more common ones, especially going into like a stuffing or a turkey. I would add in a thyme if you have oregano, that rosemary and sage. And it's going to just, even when it's cooking, it's going to bring out those smells that just kind of make you feel comforted and at home. When I smell those things personally, you know, just these thoughts and these memories start coming back.
You know, we actually have traditions at our family's households when we all get together, usually around Thanksgiving. We had two of the moms from the family that are no longer with us, and one of them absolutely was obsessed with Pringles. So we have Pringles chips. Sorry, it's not Kroger's, but we had Pringles chips there. And also another one absolutely loved different kinds of chili spaghetti in three ways. So we actually have sides. We have the chips out when everybody's just kind of arriving. And then we always have at least one casserole of three-way chili that's there, too, along with the turkey or the ham or whatever else we're having at that particular meal. And it's so neat to have all of these traditions. We do it in honor of two of the people who are no longer with us, but it is fun to find out different traditions that people have at different times of the year. I mean, I'm sure people have traditions when they have summer cookouts. I'm sure that they have traditions for the holidays, and it's just a lot of fun to talk about this. And Chef Aaron, I thank you so much for taking some time with us here on Cooking for Yummies today. The time goes so quickly. I hope that you don't wear out your shoes walking through the world's largest pantry.
You definitely have to invest in some good shoes.
That's
right. That is very true.
It's always a lot of fun to have you on the air, and I look forward to having you back soon, and we'll talk some more about this. As we're leaving, any other favorite holiday dishes? What about some sides? Anything that you like to have either at a family dinner or that you might prepare for a family dinner if it's a potluck? What are some really good sides that you might be able to recommend?
The best thing I could say for Thanksgiving is get your gravy right. You know, you can pour gravy over almost anything. Right. But my personal favorite, I really like a good mac and cheese. I like a creamy mac and cheese. And I know a lot of chefs are going to cringe out there, but I love using Velveeta as a base. It is so creamy and so rich, and it just melts so well. But it's so simple and kid-friendly as well. I'm a big fan of mac and cheese. The kid in me comes out when I think about it.
Whatever rings your bell, that's the thing. We urge people to experiment a little bit, to try different things, try different cheeses. Before we leave, I also wanted to ask Chef Aaron a little bit more about the Simple Truth brand at Kroger. And I know it's not macaroni and cheese, as we've just been talking about, but there are all kinds of options there, from the very basic food products to also the Simple Truth. So you have kind of a wide range there at Kroger, correct?
Yeah, but there is enough items on the shelves from Simple Truth to be able to make a good mac and cheese. As you mentioned, every family has their different traditions and different recipes, to where I see a lot of traditions still alive in my wife's family. And on the other side, you have people like myself or my sister pushing my parents into doing new traditions. So there's a balance that you need to find with those things. And Simple Truth makes that kind of nice, because I feel like a lot of traditions in the past were heavy in calories, which there's nothing wrong with.
Right.
With Simple Truth, you can kind of start choosing more natural items, maybe the items that are a little bit better for you. Maybe a noodle that has some vegetables in it versus just a enriched white flour pasta. There's definite options out there, and the Simple Truth product makes it available.
And the other thing is as the cook or the chef, it's kind of fun to sneak that in there and know that you're giving them something maybe a little healthier, and they don't even know the difference, which is really great. Well, Chef Aaron, thank you again. If we don't speak sooner, I wish you very happy holidays. We love having you here on Cooking for Yummies. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
You can find out more of Chef Aaron Neiman's work at Kroger.com. Look under recipes.
Thanks for joining us today for Cooking for Yummies, a presentation of WMKV, WLHS, and WMKVFM.org. Until next time, healthy and happy cooking.